Jurassic Park was the big release of 1993, and Alive, inspired by The Miracle of the Andes, was also premiering in theaters. In music, Michael Jackson finished his Dangerous World Tour in Mexico. And in World Wrestling Federation, a new generation of superstars was arriving, much smaller and more athletic than the superstars of the 80s. It would be the year when an important television show would be created and would change the vision and format of wrestling forever. We're talking about Raw, which would premiere on January 11th for all of North America on television. Greetings to Ray Espinoza and Brian Acevedo. Comment on this video for a chance to be featured next. Last year, the Hitman proved his greatness by defeating Shawn Michaels in an incredible match. And that way, he would retain the World Wrestling Federation's top title. Bret Hart was starting to win the hearts of the fans, leaving behind Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, Jake the Snake Roberts, the British Bulldog, among others. With the incredible invention of Raw, now stories could be created in a better way, since World Wrestling Federation made sure to have a large audience on Mondays and could make the events even bigger. Since the fans could follow the progress of the stories and the development of great rivalries week by week. On January 24th, the Royal Rumble would arrive, and it was one of the most anticipated events of the past year. Since WWE would rehire Marty Jannetty, this time definitely to face Shawn Michaels for the Intercontinental title. But Shawn Michaels was in the midst of his character's rise, so it would be impossible for him to lose. That's how, after 14 minutes of the match, he delivered a tremendous kick to Jannetty's jaw, taking the victory and retaining the title. Bret Hart would defend his title against Razor Ramon in a match that gave the victory to the champion and lasted a little over 17 minutes. Another new face would arrive, and it would be Lex Luger, who had previously participated in the World Bodybuilding Federation, where Vince McMahon was the owner. Lex Luger made the big jump to wrestling, accompanied by his manager Bobby Heenan, who introduced him as a true villain and narcissist. That year, a new stipulation was introduced to the Royal Rumble. The winner of the Battle Royal would go to WrestleMania to face the champion, a stipulation that remains in effect to this day. Bob Backlund would last 1 hour and 1 minute, while Yokozuna would end up winning after eliminating Randy Savage at the end of the match. 3 days after that Royal Rumble, World Wrestling Federation would suffer one of its greatest losses in history. André the Giant passed away at the age of 46 after suffering from heart failure. As a tribute, World Wrestling Federation would inaugurate its Hall of Fame and induct André the Giant as the first honorary member of this Hall of Fame. On February 22nd, would Hulk Hogan return to World Wrestling Federation? Ha ha ha, yes. The Hulkster returned to Raw to team up with his friend Brutus. Beefcake would arrive on April 4th, and WrestleMania 9 was held in the parking lot of Caesars Palace in Las Vegas, Nevada. It was considered one of the worst WrestleManias up to that point, with a truly terrible show, according to the fans themselves. In fact, Shawn Michaels himself, for many people, had the worst WrestleMania match at that event against Tatanka. Vince McMahon, seeing the low ticket sales, wanted to bring Hogan back, but this didn't help at all. The event didn't catch on in any way, and the matches weren't handled well either. Razor Ramon defeated Bob Backlund in 3 minutes. Lex Luger gave a somewhat unconvincing performance. The Undertaker extended his undefeated streak to 3-0 by defeating Giant Gonzalez. This WrestleMania would also mark the debut of Jim Ross on commentary. Also, Hogan and Brutus managed to take the victory against Money Incorporated, but Hogan wouldn't return just for that. Of course not, and it turns out that in the main event, Bret Hart would lose the title to Yokozuna. But the Hulkster would come out to challenge him in a new match and would win the title in just 20 seconds. This would be considered a huge mistake on the part of World Wrestling Federation, because the Hitman and Yokozuna were experiencing an incredible rise and growth of their characters. And people were really enjoying this rivalry. Hogan hadn't been appearing on television, and people were pretty much starting to forget about him around that time. Hogan himself knew he couldn't commit to holding that title for long enough. That's why, according to rumors, Hogan would lose the title at SummerSlam. Subscribe! However, rumors suggested that Hogan didn't want to give it to Bret Hart and only wanted to hand over the title if it was Yokozuna. Before the title change happened, Hogan went to wrestle in Japan with the World Wrestling Federation title. And he would cause tremendous controversy by declaring in an interview that the World Wrestling Federation title was a toy. And that the title he really cared about was the New Japan Pro Wrestling title. These statements really upset Vince McMahon. June would come and Yokozuna would face Hulk Hogan for the World Wrestling Federation title. During the match, the Hulkster was attacked and blinded by Harvey Whippleman, disguised as a cameraman. After this, Hogan would disappear from World Wrestling Federation for almost 9 years, while Yokozuna began his reign as the company's top champion. For his part, Bret Hart had 3 incredible matches at that event, facing Razor Ramon, Mr. Perfect, and defeating Bam Bigelow in the final, to become a 2-time King of the Ring. On July 4th, an event was held titled Yokozuna vs. the United States, where Mr. Fuji and Yokozuna invited any American citizen to face him and exchange a few blows. Several World Wrestling Federation superstars showed up. Yokozuna defeated them all. Finally, Luger arrived in a helicopter and began mercilessly punishing Yokozuna, causing a huge controversy. Wasn't Luger supposed to be a narcissist and a villain? The fans quickly turned to support Luger, which was perfect for World Wrestling Federation since they needed a new American hero after Hogan's departure. That's how the Lex Express was created, a bus that took the wrestler on a very unique tour, traveling from city to city, to hug and shake hands with thousands of fans all across North America. Luger was set to challenge Yokozuna for the title and win the championship at SummerSlam. But a few nights before SummerSlam, Luger got drunk at a bar and told a journalist everything that would happen at the event, and how would he win the championship. This was reported in the press, and World Wrestling Federation as punishment canceled this plan. He'd show up at SummerSlam without any major matches. When the time came for Luger versus Yokozuna, Luger would win the match, but unfortunately for him, it would be by disqualification. As a result, Yokozuna kept his title, and Luger was celebrated by all the company's babyfaces to maintain his positive image. From that moment on, Luger began to decline in World Wrestling Federation and would never win a major World Wrestling Federation title in his career. That year was also Ted DiBiase's final one as an active wrestler. At the same time, Matt Osborne, who played the clown Doink, would be fired due to his excessive drug addiction. Gene Ackerland would also leave World Wrestling Federation, but this time it would be to jump ship and join another wrestling promotion. A new ship called World Championship Wrestling, which would bring a lot of problems to World Wrestling Federation in the following years. Shawn Michaels would be forced to vacate the Intercontinental title after testing positive in a drug test. After that, he would temporarily leave the company. Razor Ramon would be the one to win this title and then start an incredible storyline with Shawn Michaels for the Intercontinental title. To wrap up the year 1993, we can't forget the tremendous feud that was brewing between the Hart brothers. Bret, for his part, didn't want to fight his own brother, but this only made things worse between the brothers. Owen did everything he could to annoy his brother and start stirring things up in the middle of a pandemic. For women's wrestling fans, in December 1993, the Women's Championship would be reactivated and Alundra Blaze would become the new champion. Bobby Heenan would also leave in December to join Gene Okerlund in World Championship Wrestling. Still without knowing it, the Monday Night Wars were already beginning, perhaps in a very quiet way still. Well, the year 1994 would bring us new stories, new champions, and above all, new controversies. We find ourselves in the following year,